Continue part 2. First, let's change again our variable identifier for better scripting by removing e, referring to enumerator. Replacement made everything fast and easy. Animation action now can be of 1 frame or 2. When there's only 1 frame, rather than updating every time or calling the function object prefab, let's update it once and ignore the set timer. To do this, we need to add an if statement. Bitmap frame per second here is 3, we use this to jump, using multiplication by the number of the current frame and plus 1, so we won't get 0 for the value in idle action. And now if it has 1 frame, we have to ignore the set timer and just update the layered window once. Let's get the scripts that update the layer and put it in one function, this way it can also be executed other than object prefab. Now that it is separated, we check if all variables are accessible. Since most are global, we leave it. But unlike this prefab array, it's a local array within object prefab function. To be able to access it, let's pass it through the function parameter. This one is a frame column, next to frame row, and the X and Y frame. Going through we also have this tag size, and because we have frame X and Y, we put it here too. Now that it is done, time to pass the value to the parameter, but first, let's change this enumerator identifier to prefab current frame. To get our current frame column, we multiply the current width by the current frame, and the rest are already in the prefab array, so we just have to insert it. This goes to our createAnim function too, we provide the required parameters. This time though, we don't have access to prefab array, so we must recalculate to get the same value. As you can see here, we added another enumerator in our bitmap named bitmap break. This refers to the max value of the bitmap enumerator, so by deducting the starting point of the repeating element in the array, we get the number for jumping from each action. Then to this, we multiply it by the current action less than 1, to point it to the previous value because it's the second action that begins to starts, not by 0. This also applies to the creation of our bitmap object, so we change these two. And it's working fine. It's highly probable that we didn't miss any variables or statements that needed retouching. So now, we can proceed to our next step, which is to make our animation change its action by itself. Let's decide on a 5-second interval. To do this, first, let's make a new function called a decision. This function will be dealing more with making randoms. In the meantime, this will be accessed by our while loop, and we add another element to the object array, specifying the duration it takes to change action and the countdown it starts. To be neat, let's arrange this according to the enumerator's lineup, so we assign values to it in the last. Our decisions start by providing a new random action. And to this let's see what else is there to change by checking the enumerator constant. In this case, the handle of the bitmap size needs to resize to the exact value. For the start, we need to dispose of the existing bitmap object because imager's syntax return a new handle object. And also, because we needed the previous handle in using image resize, we temporarily put it in a new variable, this way only the old bitmap will be disposed of. Next, in the enumerator, is the handle of the graphics context. This is because we have a new handle bitmap now, we need also to dispose of it and produce a new one, with the newly made bitmap object. Then there's the start time of the decision function, which needs to reset. Now that we are done updating the values of the object array, let's proceed by changing the animation. But first, let's make sure to only execute this function when the new action is different from the current action. And must not forget the starting timer to be set before it returns. In setting up the new animation, we must consider that the object prefab is on a loop. So, we temporarily disable it by executing the kill timer. This syntax requires GUI handle and the ID timer. For the GUI handle we have it stored in object array, while for the ID timer, well, we need to set it first and store it in object array as well. Now, time for the new action to attach to the layered window, so we call the animFrame function and provide its parameter. And then, we set back again the object prefab if the action has more than one frame to be displayed. And lastly, let's make sure that we only call the decision function when our object array contains one of the values needed for the animation. I typed the array wrongly, let's fix this. And now it's working as it should be. Furthermore, let's name regions in our scripts so we can toggle them all. This includes already toggle, therefore, let's leave it. Our declaration of the global variable is way too crowded, so we group them as a wake region. Then our scripts start here, so let's make it a start region. While an object prefab, as they always loop, let's call them update as the region name.